Let's hear from two of the new threats that are joining the Seattle Kraken for the opening roster.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Seattle hockey fans, welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we bring you your favorite team, the Seattle Kraken, every single day. Erica L. Ayala here, your host of Locked On Kraken, and I can't even believe it, but after really next month or the end of this month, I'll be getting ready for Milano Cortina. We have our Team USA Summit later this month where we'll get to hear from some of the athletes that will be or are expected to represent the United States at Milano Cortina. And I am accredited to follow the ice hockey tournament, which means, of course, following any Seattle Kraken players that are there. I want to thank you, as always, for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination, your first listen of the day, your late night listen, your midday listen. Either way, we appreciate you so much. It's a great time now, if you're not already, to subscribe. My audio listeners, check out our YouTube content. YouTube listeners, check out audio. Sometimes I drop things that are exclusive to one or the other, just depending on maybe there's a one-on-one interview that we have that we only got the audio, so we don't have it on video platform, or at least not first. Make sure you're subscribed. You can also check us out at Locked On Kraken on YouTube. Jordan Dabney is coming back after some personal time away, and we're going to get all of our social media handles up and running for you, but TikTok is for sure the way to go in addition to YouTube and the audio platform. Today we're going to talk about three new threats, but really hear from two of them, Ryan Winterton and Berkly Catton. Yanni Newman, technically a new threat, but had such a great training camp. I know everyone had identified that, but he was asked, or I should say Lane Lambert was asked a little bit about Newman and some of the three young guys, or the new threats, as I'm calling them. So we'll hear from him, but we're going to hear from Wintz and Catton about how they got the call, who they talked to. We'll hear from Lane Lambert on what he likes about the skill set of Catton and Winterton. Then we're going to hear Lane Lambert give a rundown on what it means to have three goaltenders, and something I'm really excited about. We've been talking about rest and recovery, and I think Lane Lambert expresses that in his answer. And then finally, Chandler Stevenson, we got to hear from him specifically about being able to step up for the young guys. And I thought what we heard Winterton and Lane Lambert say about Stevenson stood out to me. So those are the clips I have prepared for you. And I'll talk you through what Stevie himself said about why it's important to show up for your rookies and things of that nature. So, let's get into it. What Ryan Winterton will hear from first, talking about being able to be with the Kraken for the opening roster, not his debut. You'll hear him allude to that. He's been able to play in the NHL before, but obviously to start a season in the NHL, something different. Here's Wintz, and then we'll hear Lane Lambert also talk about Winterton in these first few clips.
Went upstairs to the boss room, and he kind of said, for the foreseeable future, you'll be here, but I'll take it for granted, work hard, and that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, I think I'm ready this time. I think, when you get called up your first couple of times, and even in season, it's a little different. You're kind of trying to get the feel of everything again, but, I've been skating with the guys for, all camp, so it feels a little bit easier this time and more confidence, obviously, and just ready to go. Really kind of, being, playing 21 games before this and kind of coming in fresh to this season, it's, I think a little easier on my mindset and just more confident overall. I told my family group chat with my brother, my dad, my mom, my girlfriend, and my brother's girlfriend. So pretty much all the core people knew, and I'm sure they told the rest of my family, and they've been texting me, so it's been pretty cool.
Anybody coming in?
Not for game one, but maybe when we get back from the road trip. Yeah.
He came into camp prepared just like they all did. He worked. In my mind, he's shown a good ability to understand and read the defensive side of the game. He's got great speed. And so for me, he fits into an area where, we're schooling him on penalty killing and trying to find a role for him that is best suited for him. And I think we've done that, and now it's just about continuing to grow for him.
What I thought was interesting is the language that Winterton alluded to, and it's something I've been talking about more so with Catton than Winterton, although some people in the chat have also talked about Wintz. We'll get to that in a minute. But saying that Jason Botcherill's talked about for the foreseeable future, you'll be here with the team. And it goes back to something that, we know the injuries are a big deal, and even some of the players that are available for media to speak to kind of lends itself to some of these guys just not really being ready yet. For example, these media availabilities, this came from earlier today, Tuesday, and when you ask for certain guys, if the response is, hey, they're not medically cleared yet, you kind of get a sense that, maybe on a Tuesday, first home game is Thursday. Are they going to be ready? I'm thinking of Jared McCann and Brandon Montour in particular. But, that's just as of Tuesday. Things can change, and we'll see how ready they are. Stevie, we did hear from, so seems like he's back on track there. But let's hear what Berkly Catton had to say about getting the call, and what this opportunity means for him in particular.
Kind of gave me the rundown, and still lots of work to be done, but congratulated me on making the open tonight, and it was pretty exciting. Got to call my family and stuff, and they were pretty pumped, so it was lots of fun.
What's been kind of the messaging from the coaching staff about what they're looking for from you right now?
Yeah, I think there's lots of everything. I think just the small details, from junior hockey to the NHL is a big jump, so there's lots of the little details really matter. Just hammering those down, and just trying to build my game as much as possible, not rushing anything really. Just let me do my thing when I get my chance to go do my best.
And so there's Lane Lambert talking about, every day is going to be a challenge here. And I mean, obviously, right, we know that. We know that this is a team that still has an uphill climb, even with some of the guys that are missing, but with injury, I should say. We have Capo Caco out, which, I mean, I know some people think with Caco out, Winterton especially, that leaves a little space for him. We have Riker Evans out. I think Evans has to have a bounce back year in a lot of ways. I don't know that there's anyone necessarily coming up that is an immediate threat, or so we've seen, but I want to see Riker Evans take the next step. But, I love in that clip where Lane Lambert's talking about it's that first burst of speed, and that's where Catton can win things. He talks about he's not going to win a physicality battle, but it's the ability to evade and elude. I liked that a lot. Coming up next on Locked On Kraken, let's hear from Lane Lambert with regard to what we're going to see in net and goaltending, because I've been calling for it for years, even before Joey was our number one. We need a more balanced approach. We have talked about on the show that the Seattle Kraken might, carry three goaltenders. They are going to carry three for the foreseeable future, right? But what does that look like in practice? Quite literally in practice, but also how will that help the team moving forward, even the ability to call on three goaltenders for things like practice, let alone games. I enjoyed that insight, and I think you will too. We got that coming up on Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken, once again brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. We know that the NFL season is in full swing for those diehard NFL fans, and FanDuel has an offer that you won't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's right, pick a bet, put down $5. And if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You can use it on building parlays, player props, even following live lines during the game. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little bit of something riding on the action. And we know the NHL season is back. We saw some games Tuesday. And so you can also, of course, do all of that for NHL. WNBA finals are going on. I'll be catching up with the series in Phoenix in a couple of days. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes every game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. Erica L. Ayala here, your host of Locked On Kraken. A reminder, check us out over on TikTok at Locked On Kraken. IG is back up and rolling at Locked On Kraken. We'll be getting the Twitter activated through Joe Dabney real soon. And, of course, follow, subscribe, leave us a review on your favorite audio platform. All right, goaltending. If you're an everydayer, you know this. I have never been thrilled with how we ride our starting goaltender. From the beginning, we were told it was supposed to be more of an equitable split, whether that was more of a 65, 40 or 35 situation. But, we never really got there. Every year we've had what I would say either a significant injury or setback to one of our goaltenders, and we haven't been able to split that net. The Seattle Kraken do something that we haven't seen in a while. They bring on 3 goaltenders. And I know that we've talked in the past about, this is future-proofing, specifically thinking about the Olympics. And although I do think that's a way to make this palatable, especially for Philip Grubauer, I also think maybe this is a way to have Philip Grubauer step his game up. I played that press conference where he is very much about the communication and the structure that he's getting. You can only assume that he meant comparative to last year. I've been telling you on the show, it just felt like that was a little bit of the rub and why we saw the Seattle Kraken move away perhaps from Dan Bylsma. Now, whether that was only or specifically with Philip Grubauer and goaltending, or if that permeated elsewhere, I guess only time will tell. But it just seemed like I didn't like, honestly, how the Philip Grubauer situation was handled by the organization. I can understand Philip Grubauer's frustration. Even putting that to the side, though, this has needed to get fixed for a while. And so it was our friend RJ, who I know was mentioned in our comments. RJ and Dylan have been on the show before, but sounds like it's time to get the group back together. RJ and I are talking a lot the other day, the last preseason game, which was also the last game I was able to go to, about a lot of the things we've been talking about on the show. Where does Winterton fit? Where does Catton fit? What about Mulgard eventually? Things of that nature. But another thing we were talking about, or another thing that we all know was a topic of conversation, is goaltending. And so it was great to hear RJ ask a little bit about, what is the plan? Lane Lambert said, yeah, that's a good question. But here's how he answered RJ's good question.
I think our goaltending coach, Colin Zuliano, has done a great job. We've gone through this, at length in preparation for training camp and, heading into the regular season as to how we can best keep everyone sharp. And certainly he's done a great job of that, whether it be through practice reps. Clearly the goaltenders are out on the ice, a half an hour early. If you have 2 goalies, a lot of times you're only out on the ice 15 minutes early. So there's you have a situation where maybe Joey doesn't go out and Gruby and Murray do. If one of those 2 plays, then they wouldn't go out. So there's different ways of managing it, and there's certainly some positives to that in terms of giving each other proper rest too when they're playing. And Joey's going to play a decent amount here, and I'm not going to announce the starting goaltenders, but certainly there's going to be times when he's going to need rest.
I mean, there's so much that I really like about that clip, including that you hear Lane Lambert allude to that this has been an ongoing planning process to make sure that they get this right, to make sure that they are figuring out how to get everyone, I forget the exact language that he used, but the right amount of repetitions. Because again, that's something that we haven't seen in preseason. But I talked about it, I believe, on yesterday's show, right? There are things that, there are ways and evaluations that will happen outside of just game action that will help the organization make the determinations that they need to with regard to goaltending. And you heard some of them. When you have 3 goaltenders and you're thinking about a practice, if you're going and doing some simulations or some small scrimmages or whatever the case is, and you only have 2 goaltenders, then your goaltender, Joey Decord, more likely than not, he's going to have to be out there. Joey has to be out there. But you heard Lane Lambert talk about the plan is when you have 3 goaltenders, maybe there are days where if someone is going on a game day or getting ready for a game day, maybe they don't go out for the goalie portion, or they do drills differently. I thought that was I'm really glad he gave that answer. And you also heard him allude to what I asked him about a couple of days ago, right before that last preseason game. I asked him about rest and recovery. Now, I wasn't specifically talking about goaltending. I was thinking about the team overall. I was asking more about back-to-backs, but it all fits into what are things that we've been talking on the show about here. And again, it goes back to maybe what was missing under Dan Bylsma. The communication thing I thought was key. I think it's telling that that's a focus. I think some of that is just Lane's style and how he wants to operate, and knowing that he's working with a new staff to him for the most part. But I think also it speaks to the things that perhaps were missing under Dan Bylsma, and why there was this move for a coaching change, but maybe even specifically for Lane Lambert. So, I mean, again, in our comments on YouTube, someone, I think it might have been Striatic, said, is Lane the right guy? Who knows? We'll figure it out. I'm with you there. I think I'm getting more comfortable with the idea. That being said, I've said this before, and I think it's still true. There's a lot that this organization above Lambert and his staff have to figure out. I think that Botterill having that conversation with his coaching staff and finding a way to have 3 goaltenders, it speaks to that they're at least acknowledging some of the challenges that we've seen in the past. I think bringing in Mason Marchment, asking Ryan Winterton to be really good on the PK, those are other things, such as our special teams, specifically on the PK, and net front presence, that we know is going to be a big driver to what Lane Lambert wants to see offensively. So I think there's hope in that. Are those tweaks, and is Lane Lambert the right guy to enforce the good habits to support those changes? That's the question. Because I do think at least some of it now, whether it was because Dan Bylsma lost the room or was the room not responding to him, I mean, some will say that's the same, and I get it. It kind of is. But I think there's a difference of, is it that you never had them? Is it that you lost them at some point? Is it that your messaging wasn't getting, like, what was that? Were you not, was the last coaching staff not able to hold them accountable in a specific way? I think there's some of that, because the team kept saying they know what they have to do, but they weren't doing it. Now, in hindsight, is that players kind of signaling, yeah, we know what to do, but also we're doing what we're being told to do? I mean, I don't know. But anyway, just some food for thought. But coming up, we'll close out the show talking about Chandler Stevenson, hearing from other people on why, his style of leadership, being able to invite the young guys over for dinner, why that's important. It sounded like it was an amazing spread, by the way. Again, I don't have the Stevie clip here. I was trying to keep this kind of short. But again, maybe some stuff we'll put up on social media for bonus content, etc. But, that's huge. And I think Stevie stepping up in that way is also huge. Someone I've been very critical of on the ice and I think warranted. It's been warranted, but there's other elements of veteran presence and leadership. Is it a 7-7 worthy contract? I mean, we can have that debate, but at least for now, I think it's good to know that there are leaders that will step up and try to make things a little easier for some of the young guys. And Stevie seems to be one of them. So we'll get into that as we close out today's episode of Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken also brought to you by our friends at there it is, Indeed. And listen, hiring can be tough. And sometimes you wake up and you realize your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. Listen, I have been there. You hire someone who on paper seems really good, and then in practice, it's just not good chemistry. Or you hire someone and they're so awesome that they get another role somewhere else, which is great for you, for them. And it also means that you got to find your next great candidate. And that's what Indeed helps you do with some of the things that they're able to do in matching and things of that nature. They're making sure that your job post is seen by highly qualified people with the skill sets that you are looking for. Now you can speed up the hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/locked-on right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring Indeed is all you need. All right, Seattle hockey fans, it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time. The NHL season, regular season, has officially started. The Seattle Kraken will have their first 2 home games coming up this week, starting on Thursday against Anaheim. And it's also a time, I can attest to this, where our young guys in particular living out of hotels, and you don't get a home cooked meal every once in a while. And that's why veterans like Chandler Stevenson stepping up to take the young guys under their wing is so important. Let's hear a little bit from Wince and Catton and even Lane Lambert about why having a veteran like Stevie is so important for this young group and ultimately for the Kraken.
Me and Chan invited us over for dinner the other night, kind of just talking shop, and it's been good. Just kind of letting them teach me, and just getting open. They can make plays, and it'll be fun. Home cooked meal was nice. Kind of been Uber Eats and going out for dinner the past couple weeks, so to get a home cooked meal was nice, and it was nice of them.
I think that whether it be Chandler or any other of our older players, I think we've got good veteran players that are able to mentor these guys. Certainly, again, from a standpoint, any player that came into the league young, myself included, you look to the veteran players to help you out in different situations. Thanks.
So, again, Stevie, he talked about remembering even someone who wasn't much older than him, but had been in the NHL longer than him, inviting him over, living at times with a veteran, just so you're not home alone or in the hotel alone, you get a home cooked meal, and there's that opportunity to connect. He talked about how Berkly Catton and Ryan Winterton, there was a little bit of babysitting, he called it, because the guys were just there having a good time, wrestling, talking shop, as we heard from Winterton. But those things matter, and they can go a long way in making young guys comfortable. Again, it seems like the organization has communicated, and Lane Lambert even said this, that the rosters can change We heard from Lane Lambert about Brandon Montour. I told you Montour and McCann were not made available to media, which is another indication that they're not quite medically cleared. But with those guys out, there's an opportunity for a player like Stevenson to step up in the leadership department. There's also a real need to connect these guys, get them acclimated, because the better they feel off of the ice, and the more you communicate off of the ice, the easier it becomes to communicate on the ice, especially when you're trying to problem solve, because you have that shorthand. You've been able to create a rapport. I think it's going to be interesting to see how long Winterton and Catton are up. Catton talked about how he knows there are parts of his game that, even in the preseason, things that he liked, things he needs to improve upon. I've said it before. I mean, a little bit surprised maybe to see how things are going here. I think it's also interesting that at least from, top brass, we haven't heard anyone say, or that I'm aware of, certainly in, regular media scrums, that this is just kind of, we have 10 or some odd games where they can keep Catton, a la what we heard with Shane Wright. I wonder if some of what we're seeing is just assuming that he's on the roster for the foreseeable future, and you figure the rest out. There seems to be a little bit more of a target, and Shane's situation was different. Expects to go 1, he falls to 4, comes to the Kraken. I think that the organization probably learned a lot also on how to just deal with bringing in a guy that had so much, media attention. I talked about it on the show. Like, I'm tired of talking about this. I know it's the newsworthy thing, and it's like for a daily show, we were talking about Shane Wright and what he was or wasn't doing, what is or isn't happening with his development. And that's not what we're seeing with Berkly Catton. I don't right now see him as a full-time NHLer. I just don't. Now, will that change in the next 9-10 games? Maybe. I don't know if it's going to significantly exponentially change. And we had a comment saying that he doesn't have anything else to learn in juniors, and I agree with that. However, the rules are what they are. I think he would be much better suited starting the season in the AHL and then coming up if and when the Seattle Kraken need bodies, and that's where the John Hayden thing comes in, etc., or other guys that could have maybe been more NHL ready. But how do you get NHL ready until you play NHL games? So it's definitely something I'm going to keep an eye on, but it does seem that they're handling the situation different. And a part of that is because Berkly Catton is different. Again, the situations are different between Shane Wright and Berkly Catton, but I know a lot of people, myself included, want to know what's going to happen with Shane Wright. I still believe in the year of Beniers, and I talked to Maddie about that. We've had an exclusive one-on-one interview with him over, and throughout training camp and preseason. So there's still a lot that has to go right for this Kraken team to do better than they did last year. And I feel like I don't know if that's the minimum, but it kind of is, even though I think that there's more to aspire for, but this team has to be able to show that they can perform better than they did last year. And if that doesn't happen, I mean, we don't know. I don't expect that to happen, but I didn't expect Dan Bylsma to struggle as much as he did, and the organization or the team under Dan Bylsma to struggle as much as it did. So who knows? But what is the real goal here? Again, I think there's multiple ways that you can look at it. And I think we still have to figure that out, to be determined. But we've got games this week, so we will talk about that. A reminder to be kind to yourselves so you can be kind to others as well. Let's hold fast. Let's stay true and loud and proud. We say, let's go Kraken. I will catch you on the next episode. Peace out, everybody.